Welcome to It Takes Heart. I'm Sam Miklos.
And I'm Kate Coomber.
We hope you enjoy these incredible stories of healthcare professionals making a difference in communities across Australia and beyond.
Through our conversations, we look to celebrate the spirit of community and care.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land who have long practiced and shared ancient methods of healing, providing care and support for their communities with wisdom passed down through generations.
Join us as we explore what it truly means to take heart.
Okay, so today we have the pleasure of chatting with free-spirited, troopie driving remote area nurse India Priestley. Ever since responding to one of our Facebook ads titled Travel with Work, India has been doing just that. She's travelled to the furthest parts of the country, from the untouched beaches of Tumby Bay in South Australia to Bunbury in Western Australia. India has truly found her true purpose in remote area nursing. And for India, remote area nursing enables her to provide a level of comfort for her patients that she felt was just not possible in the city hospitals. Locuming over the last 3 years, India has discovered a work-life balance that she'd always hoped for, enjoying endless adventures and making so many wonderful new friendships around the country. Welcome, Indy, to It Takes Heart.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Before we get into anything, I have to ask, what is a troopie? I have an army truck in my mind. Like, what is this troopie?
It's pretty well just a big Land Cruiser four-wheel drive, but mine's got a roof conversion, so it's like a double bed. I call it the penthouse.
Yeah, the penthouse.
The penthouse, and then downstairs I've got a fridge, I've got a coffee machine, I have an air fryer, I have a shower. So it's basically like set up for off-grid living.
Yeah.
So I can go about 2 weeks off-grid, got enough water.
Oh my God.
So I can just go basically anywhere in the country. It's not really limited to anywhere, which is handy.
And did you have this troopie from your very first locum placement, or has this evolved over the last few years?
So I initially bought it in June of 2020. I saw, ironically, during the first lockdowns, I saw a bunch of YouTube videos about a couple that had travelled around Australia in a troopie. And coming from the Gold Coast, it wasn't really something that I'd really seen. I'd always ridden horses. I always had four-wheel drives. And then I sort of slowly started was looking and I was like, I really want a troopie. It was more so I could just go camping. When I bought it, there was no inkling to travel Australia at all. I was very settled on the Gold Coast. So then I sort of bought the troopie in June of 2020, took a month off my permanent job and then went on my first trip on it and then decided to come back and put my resignation in and decided I wanted to travel. It wasn't bought specifically to travel, but now it's just been the perfect car. Yeah.
And I follow you on Instagram. I love it.
Kate is like a mad fan of yours.
It's so what a lot of people want to do. It's really that wanderlusty vibe that you have in your entire page, and it looks like you've got a group of troopies traveling around, and you seem to find connection with people and almost comparing the fit outs and what you've done and the fails that don't work. I think it's brilliant. It's so helpful to others that might consider it all.
Are you going to get a troopie?
Do it.
Probably not
Never
for
say
me.
never.
Never say
never.
right?
Never say never. But
yours will be beautifully decked out, though.
I might have to go and become a nurse first.
Can I just ask so quickly, do you drive alone? Like what you said about the community there, Kate. Is it you driving your troopie from placement to placement on your own?
Yeah, so I've done it completely solo. Occasionally I'll have a friend jump in, or if I'm on a placement somewhere, some of my friends will come and visit. Often I find having that spare seat is so handy. When I worked in Alice, we used to go camping a lot, so the girls that didn't have four-wheel drives could jump in the passenger seat with me.
Right.
So that was really, really cool. But no, it's all been by myself. And then when you mentioned the troopie community, I want to say it's a cult without saying it's a cult. Yeah. Troopie people, they stick together, and everybody, when I got a flat tire when I was in WA, the first two people to stop both had troopies. So they all look out for you. You all have a lot of similar interests. That's sort of a big car that you travel around in. A lot of couples, there's more solo girls now than I've seen in the last, when I first started, I knew no girls that had troopies.
Yeah.
And so now slowly, I know another nurse from Brisbane that I did my placement with. She's recently got a troopie and is now traveling Australia in it. So it's kind of cool that it's sort of spreading. It's a really safe car that's so reliable. And you do just have a big community. No matter where you go, you can say hello to another troopie owner and you're instant mates. So
do you feel safe as a, you know, you were saying there's not many like solo girls traveling around their troopies, but have you felt safe and like a flat tire on the side of the road, all of those things?
Yeah, I've had a couple of like sketchy moments. I think my first like probably year and a half, I was a bit more blasé to it. And I've had a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, I should probably move on. But honestly, for the most part, like people talk about it being like quite scary. It is like a big confidence thing as well. Like if I get a flat tire, I'm calling my dad and I'm like, something's gone wrong. But he left me when I left. I knew how to change a tire. And the mechanical problems, like I service my own car now. So I'm able to do a lot of things that I wouldn't even have thought I could do, but it's pretty cool that I've sort of like learnt along the way. And if something goes wrong, you become really familiar with the cars. So you sort of become, I know like a lot of people with partners, like their partners usually know a lot about the cars, but you sort of like, if something breaks down, I'm like, oh, well, I'll call either roadside assist, I'll call my dad. Sometimes it's an easy fix. Sometimes it requires like a mechanic, but yeah. It's sort of, I don't know, it's a confidence thing. Definitely wasn't this confident when I first got it. The first trip I did, I got bogged and didn't know how to put it into full drive. So that was a humbling moment.
That would have been me.
Did you start little bit by little bit before you went really remote? You know, did you do some little trips from the Gold Coast? I guess what were you even doing at the Gold Coast? You know, how did it start?
So I worked on the Gold Coast. I did my grad year and then started when I bought the troopie. I was in my second year of nursing. So and then I went on my first month-long trip. I had 2.5 weeks. And I was planning to get to Uluru, but that was when the borders were all chaotic. So I ended up going all the way up to Mount Isa, across to like Cairns and the Daintree. Yeah. So that was like my first big trip. And then I did probably like in between permanent roles, I had like, on my leave, I think I had like 2-day trips or 3-day trips sort of around the Gold Coast. And then I left with a plan for just a year on the road. So I went to Victoria first and then COVID hit pretty hard. And then that's, sort of leads into how I ended up doing agency, because that's how I got across the border to South Australia.
Oh, through the agency. So that was that was where it came, was you saw the ad and it was like travel for work. You're thinking, I'm kind of doing it. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah, and I was stuck in a lockdown because I had gone to South Australia, then New South Wales on another, it was probably like a 3-week trip. And I was living in Victoria and I got a call from my family down there and they're like, hey, the borders are shutting in 48 hours. And I was I was a fair way away. So I had to drive back, but I had to isolate for 2 weeks. And it was in those 2 weeks of isolation, it was rainy, it was sleety, it was like freezing cold. I was sitting outside doing some stuff because I was in isolation at my family's house, and I saw the ad come up for Cornerstone on Facebook. I was like, there's no way this is true. Like, I was like,
scammers.
On my leg.
They're full of it. So where are you now then? Where have we got you today?
So I'm actually in the West Arnhem Land. So I am working, it's sort of like a permanent casual role because I wanted to get RAN experience before I went agency running, just for like peace of mind, because I know you get thrown in the clinic. I wanted to be able to use my skills straight away. So in a hospital, I'm super comfortable, but just RAN wise. So I actually met the manager of this clinic when I was traveling WA.
Oh, wow.
In a car park making dinner, ironically. Of all places, we were at the beach, it was sunset, and him and his partner were traveling, and I'd just finished my post-grad, so my goals like last year were to slowly develop my brand, sort of like all my things that you need to tick off to work remote. And I'd literally just submitted my last assignment, was about to finish my post-grad, and he was like, do you want a job? And I was like, this is like a perfect in to get experience in a, it's not permanent, like I've come up, this is my 3rd time now. And then obviously in between done like contracts with Cornerstone. So it was sort of like a good spot to get experience before I feel confident enough to go out remote with like a brand
doing a true remote. Who needs Cornerstone when you can meet people in a camping
car
ground,
park,
right? Like, let's tell Becky that. We don't need you
I think we
anymore,
need to go and
Becky.
set up a stall in the car park. We'll just go to...
What are we even doing
Let's
in
get
that
a troopie.
office?
I honestly could not believe it. Like when we started chatting, and you know, you chat to lots of strangers on the road, and most of the time it's just like, oh yeah, like, you know, they're just traveling for a bit, and he's like, oh, I work in the West Arnhem, and I was like, oh, you got there? He's like, I'm a RAN, I manage the clinic. I was like, you're joking
You are
me.
just who I
Like
need.
the universe just like, yeah.
So you talked about the upskilling there that you're preparing for and getting ready to go into that true RAN work. I guess for people who maybe don't understand really what that is, can you talk about what upskilling exactly you have to do, but also what is RAN work?
Okay, so RAN work is remote area nursing. So basically you're stationed usually in small Indigenous communities. So I'm on an island at the moment that's got 200 to 250 people. There's 4 streets. It's a very traditional land. There's like about 11 languages spoken here. So I like to describe it as a GP clinic for nurse, like it's nurse run. We have a GP come up usually once a week or once a fortnight. And that's the same in most areas. You've obviously got your on-call and then you follow in the NT, it's called PAPA. In WA, it's the public health. They've got like their own paperwork as well. So it's basically like you do your own assessments and like prescriptions and things like that. So it's kind of like, it's literally a GP, but without being a GP, you have on-call. So every second or third day, you have first call out. So if the clinic's closed after hours, between like overnight, you get the calls. So you go into the clinic, respond to emergencies. Yeah, so it's sort of like a bit of a broader role. There's a lot more scope than what you get in hospital.
Yeah.
So experience-wise, upskilling, most of the time you need at least like 4 to 5 years of either ED and acute experience, which I think is super necessary because sometimes you have no idea what's coming through the door.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to like, and there's not a lot of resources. So
you're not referring them on to the next place, are you?
Yeah.
You need to deal with it.
And there's not a doctor that immediately can come on site. Like most places I have worked otherwise, there's a doctor either on the side or within 20 minutes that you can call. They're in there with you. You've usually got a team of maybe 3 to 4 other nurses. So up here at the moment, there's just the 2 of us. There is a third as well coming out. So it's a lot smaller staffing. So I think that clinical judgment is like a huge thing and it's not anything you can be taught. It's just a time thing. So I've done like a grad cert now in rural and remote health practice. And then there's also a bunch of minor courses. So there's RecMec, there's the pharmacotherapeutics, your immunizations, and then like your triage and things like that you do usually, your ALS, and usually your pediatric ALS now is sort of like coming up as like one that's really important to know.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's sort of a lot. Like it's huge, I suppose, in paperwork wise and like learning up. I learned a lot last year doing all the courses. So,
and you're quite early on in your career, but you've still had quite a bit of career progression, even though you're in that locum lifestyle, which people would sort of assume you wouldn't get. Do you feel like you've been able to really tap into that progression quite easily over the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think if I had stayed on the Gold Coast where I was, my career probably wouldn't have changed much. I think it's a comfort zone thing. And I think you end up, like I was super comfortable in my job and I was like, I have to get myself out there. And it was honestly through doing the last 3 years doing cornerstone placements, because the first place I went was sort of more remote. I've come from a big metro city hospital to like it was a smaller hospital in Peterborough. So, and I was able to learn like my ED skills there, my assessment skills, because I think in metro hospitals, you don't have a bigger scope because you've always got either more experienced nurses or there's obviously like, there's staff and doctors around.
Yeah.
So, doing my placements I would never have even thought of I didn't even know what a RAM was when I was on the Gold Coast.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think and this is my 6th year out and I genuinely this was not the divert of my career. I was thinking I was going to go on.
Where did you think you would have been?
I genuinely reckon I would probably, if I had stayed, I'd probably maybe be a clinical nurse in the same ward on the same hospital.
Yep.
I don't know whether I would have moved into ED because for me, like ED was really scary.
And
like
the Gold Coast, it would have been very different.
And it was a really scary concept. So I was super comfortable. I probably would have stayed, done a postgrad. I used to work in oncology and hematology. So I probably would have just been stuck in my little bubble, not seen anything, had my 4 weeks of holiday. I just don't think it would have been something. And now like I've started doing the remote stuff and even the smaller hospitals, like they're so much fun and they're so, like I love them so much more.
I think it's perspective to a point, isn't it? Because you talk there about ED in a busy hospital being scary. I think some people listening will feel that you're in the middle of nowhere with very little support, that sounds terrifying because you have to back yourself and you have to be confident in your clinical ability, but also, I guess, just socially. Like, you know, you might, some people might feel isolated.
Yeah, isolation's probably one of the biggest things I've felt more in the last sort of 6 months. I didn't so much because last year I worked in Bunbury and we had some of the best times. I was there for 3 months. One of my best placements I've done because it was like 20
There's a community
people.
of the Cornerstone staff there as well. Like, it's a lot.
And it was like, who do you work with? It was like Cornerstone Suite. We used to have potluck dinners. We used to go to the beach, go for walks, go to the gym together. So there was a big community.
Yeah.
And then sort of going to the more remote places, like Tumby Bay is still near like Port Lincoln. It's quite a big community, I suppose, in terms of where I am now. But you sort of I've found like you make a little family within the hospital or within like the healthcare facility. There's always people that will welcome you home or like, you know, invite you over for lunch or dinner or invite you to take you to local places. But probably in the last like 6 months, I found Tasmania a bit more isolating. And then obviously up here, it's like a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
That's just not even, you know, the flights are only Monday to Friday. So the community up here, you've got your nurses and you're really, really close because, you know, you help each other out. If shit hits the fan, you've got each other.
How do you deal with that loneliness and isolation? Like, how do you keep yourself busy?
And I think even what's the plan forward if you're going to go even further remote? What are you thinking about that today?
I chat to my friends all the time. I have I call them my long distance best friends. I chat to them pretty well all the time, either on a phone call, FaceTime, just keeping in contact with like the people. I've been away now 3 years, so I don't get home to the Gold Coast a lot, so I chat to my family a lot. Social media is great because I always sit on and have a little yarn to people just in the middle of, you know, I think that's a big thing. Keep myself distracted. I'm really into crosswords at the moment.
Oh,
yeah. If I'm not on an island where I am at the moment, if I'm in one of the smaller like towns and stuff, and I usually have my car, I'll go. That's like my chance to explore my downtime. So I honestly never feel isolated down. Like when I've got my car, I literally will go out camping. I'm able to go away for weekends. You know, that's my chance to explore the areas, which I think is like, so it's sort of, it comes in waves though. Like it's definitely, I think it's keeping myself busy.
I think it's a really beautiful point because I think some people in city areas can actually feel really isolated and disconnected. And it sounds like by stepping outside of that and maybe being forced to look for what else, you're actually more connected.
Yeah. And I think the friendships and like the people I have in my life now are some of like, I'm so lucky because, you know, if I've had a shit day or something, I can call them and it's like you just chat about anything else. And it's so nice because you realize who is really like who you want in your life. And I think that's sometimes a bit harder to find, like you say, in city hospitals because there's so many more people or just in cities in general. There's
it's
so
more
many
lonely.
Yeah. And you're like, do you have that genuine friendship with someone? And that's sort of been a tough one to learn over the last couple of years because I lost a lot of people when I left because I wasn't there. It's not that physical time that you have with people catching up. But yeah, the people that I see and speak to and my family, like it's so nice that they've got my back. Like, you know, it's kind of, you feel isolated in location, but not like I'm supported by some of the best people. So it's kind of like a fine balance, I suppose.
Can I ask a personal question? I know 27, when I was 27, I would have been listening to this going, how am I going to get out there dating if I'm out in these communities? Is dating a thing? Can you swipe left and right in these places?
Small population,
small
when everyone knows everyone?
I imagine not. Talk to me about this. I'm happily married right now, asking for my friend.
It's different dating on the road. I think it's a lot more difficult than what people like think because for me, like I haven't been anywhere longer than 3 months in the past 3 years. So my longest place I've ever sat was Bunbury. And it's hard to become attached or even date, like to find a guy that you're like, I'm actually only here for like 4 weeks and then I'm leaving it. Like it is hard. It is probably that's like a side of it sometimes that I'm like, oh, I've really messed up here because I have no chance of finding a bloke that I'm like, let's just go to the chaotic life. I don't know what I'm doing in 2 weeks' time. I just drive until I like the location, or it is really, really hard.
Plus, you'd probably be intimidating to a bloke with all your troopy skills.
I was going to
you're
say,
like, let me just pull over here and change a tyre and service my car. And he's like, what?
I think some good news, though, is that we've actually spoken to a couple on this podcast as well who met nursing and travel together, and so
it's definitely possible. I have seen like nurse doctor combos, physio combos, OTs and nurses. Like there's definitely, it's just finding the right guy that I'm
the pool is smaller.
Yeah, and like I've definitely dated like a couple of years ago, and then it was kind of a rough heartbreak. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. But it's so hard as well. And it's easy at the same time, because now I've dated a few guys and I'm like, okay, I'll take that little like trait that I absolutely adore, but you can leave that other trait. That's not
leave that one in Bunbury.
My future husband, but I have like the best of all of them. So you definitely you can be a little bit more picky. And I think, the lifestyle that I have, I'm like, it's so crazy, and I'm definitely not in a rush to find anyone, because it's just, I don't know, I really enjoy my life.
You're having fun.
Would like the company, don't get me wrong, but yeah.
But it sounds like you're building that.
I think we need to just give that wish list to the team, so that if anyone comes across their desk, we could just make sure
that's a new feature.
The medical matchmakers, we'll match you up. We're sending a doctor up to Arnhem Land.
That's so true.
Crazy stories. There's got to be some some great stories that you can share with us about that life on the road. Is there any that are worth sharing today?
Oh, I reckon some of the best times I've had was traveling WA last year. I described last year as the best year of my life. It was just chaos 24/7. It was when I rocked up in Exmouth and I ran into a bunch of people I'd met online. We all went out camping. There was 40 of us camping on this one site.
Oh my God.
And it was for one of my mates' birthdays, and they're all strangers, and by the end of the night, some of my best mates have come out of that. And
Amazing.
I travelled up through the Kimberley, and some of the stuff we did that, I travelled the Gib River Road, which is 700 Ks of corrugations. And I was so nervous to do it and would not have done it by myself. But I was with some of my really good mates. Woke up the first morning with a flat tire, and we're sitting there. It's 40 degrees. Had no idea. I was like, oh my God, this is the first day. We've got another 2 weeks of this. But it was just the coolest, chillest situation ever. And I wouldn't have done that without my mates, because it was just ironic. First day, things are broken. There's things in my car that have just fallen off. I'm like, oh, there you go, that's gone now.
Yeah.
You're just
Didn't need that.
It's pretty cruisy. It's not really, I don't know, all the things that I've done, I'm just going to call myself out. But when I was having some time off and hitchhiked to the local pub with some random, because I just asked him and he was in a ute, and I was like, can you just drop me off at the local pub? And he was like, I don't know who you are. I was like, neither, just please take me.
Oh, your parents will be hearing this going, what? You did what?
Some of the stuff I've done, I'm like, oh God, that probably wasn't safe at the time. But
I think it's that traveling feeling though, right? You have this sense of invincibility sometimes when you go traveling. I think anyone whether you take off abroad or whether you go remote, you have that sense. You can do anything.
And it's that trust in people that you're like, oh, you'll be right. You've got this, don't worry about it. And I don't know, all of my travels over the last 3 years have literally been some of the best times of my life, because it's you just, I wish I could write a book on all the cool stuff I've got to see and do.
Yeah, you can. You've got the time. Put the crossword down and write a chapter.
Because all the stories and stuff I've had is just so cool. Yeah,
that's it. And I was just going to ask you about that, because you said that you've really found your purpose in remote nursing, and you've kind of touched a little bit, but I guess tell us about the impact that you've been able to have in these communities. When you think about all those stories, what are the really memorable nursing moments that you've had over the last few years?
I think one that literally stands out to me was in Tumby Bay, and it was a little guy that had fallen, broken his hit his lip, split it open, and it was 9 o'clock at night. The doctors, and Tumby Bay's probably got like 800 people maybe in the surrounds. It's like one main street. It's one of my favorite places in Australia. Like I absolutely adore it. And we sorted him out and he went home. And then the next morning I went for my walk down the beach and I just get this, Indy. And I was like, no, it's only one day. And he's like running down the beach and he's like, look, like it's looking better. I saw him like a week later. I think it's like those like moments where you're like, I made a difference. And I think you get that, I suppose, in some bigger hospitals. But I think in like the small communities, like even on the island here, I'll go to the local shop and they're like, oh, hang in there, like I feel better now, or I've done this. And I'm like, oh, that's really good. Like I'm happy for you. So I think it's a bit of, I think nursing's a thankless job. It definitely is, especially in the bigger hospitals. I find sometimes you're just a number because it is just like that, you know? And I think coming to the smaller towns or smaller communities, you have more of a like interpersonal relationship with them where it's like they know who you are. You've obviously made a difference. And generally like I'll know their face or I'll know their name and I'm like, oh my God, you're looking so much better. Like I'm stoked for you. Or, you know, you run into the shops and you're like, oh, you're up and about. Like, how are you going? Like, it's so nice to have that relationship with them that you don't always get in the bigger hospitals because they're obviously in and out and there's so many people around. So I think that's one thing that it always sticks with me. Like when I see someone out in public that I've treated and they're like, oh my God, like I feel better or this is what happens. I'm like, oh, sweet. Like, so glad. So, yeah.
Can I, you know, you touched on there, like you said a few times, like the local shop. Coming from the Gold Coast to some, you know, the local shop is Pacific Fair to some of the communities. And I think sometimes there's a bit of a cultural shock for candidates who are new to those areas where there might be one shop or, like you've said, the plane comes in on a Wednesday and a Friday or sometimes the shop's not open. Can you just give an insight into, I guess, some of those smaller areas? Like what is the infrastructure? What does that look like to better prepare people, I guess?
Yeah. Most of the times, probably in the last year, I've only worked places that have an IGA. And then the closest Woolies or Coles is maybe like an hour or half an hour away. Obviously, like when I worked in Bunbury and Alice, they have like, it's a bigger sort of city centre. So sometimes there's usually an IGA, there's a servo, there's a bakery, a fish and chip shop. Sometimes you have like one or two cafes, not always guaranteed. And usually they're only open like, you know, on a Saturday or something. Like they're so intimate that you just have no idea what to expect. But most of the time it's just like a lot. You see, like, again, coming from the Gold Coast, my parents' house, there's 2 major shopping centres within 10 minutes. So coming to the smaller places, I definitely learned to prepare a lot earlier. So I'll go to a big Woolies because it's generally cheaper and then you just like top up as you need. So there's a lot smaller facilities, but I think it's more like you support the communities. And yes, it's more expensive, but as agency, you're on a higher wage. So I think, you know, you can take that little bit because it's not a big corporation. Generally, they're family-run IGAs. The kids working in them are school kids. They're all locals. So, you know, I feel like it's something I'm willing to, you know, you compromise.
You want to support.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds like you've really found purpose in this new way of life. You can see when talking to you just how much it fills you up, like, which is so wonderful because the people that you're impacting will feel that, I'm sure. And I think that's just so beautiful. I think if people are listening and maybe they've just learnt about what RAN work is, or maybe they've been thinking about it for a while, what advice would you give?
I want to say do it just because, and like do your research. I get hundreds and hundreds of questions across Instagram and TikTok being like, how did you do it? Like, how did you take that leap? And I'm not going to lie, I was shit scared. Like I was so scared because I was in a really good permanent job. I had a really good base of people. I loved the people that I worked with, but I think I was super, like I worked in an oncology, hematology. I saw a lot of people pass very early on in my career. Like the first 2 years was pretty rough and a big eye opener because, you know, you get diagnosed with 4 months to live and they're 30. And I'm like, if I was 30 getting diagnosed with that, would I be content with where I am at in life? You know, have I got to travel? Have I got to see the things I've wanted to do? Have I found who I was? And I think that was a big step but I was shitting myself. I quit my job and I went to casual, and I said, I'll be back in a year. Can you keep my contract open? Just in case. And my manager was like, yeah, all good. Like, are you sure? Like, is this really what you want to do? And I was like, no, it's not, but I've got to do it, because if I don't take that leap now, I was single. I didn't have any ties apart from my family and my friends on the Gold Coast. And I was like, I've got to do it. And I think the first 6 months were really hard because, and you know, it's not easy and it can be really hard. I cried a lot in the first 6 months just because it's like a whole different world. You're constantly meeting people, your support system. Like I say, that's when I lost a lot of people and people that I thought were really, really good friends. You sort of lose that. So that can be really hard. I was 23 when I left, and now I'm like, I could never, like, love the Gold Coast, love going back to visit, but it's not, I've now found that it's not my place that I'd like to settle. It's not the type of people that I like to surround myself with. Like, you know, all of my friends are usually just chilled, and it's just just a different lifestyle, I suppose.
I think people can identify with that regardless of where you move to, right? I think you can move city, you can move abroad, people make changes and I think go through similar things.
Yeah, and it is just a change thing. And I think if someone's wanting to do it, I always say try and get like a 4-week placement in not super remote. I always say, like, go somewhere where there's
dip your toe in a little bit.
Yeah, and I say, like, keep your permanent job, go casual, don't tell anyone, because then people are going to make up these weird preconceived ideas that you're leaving and never coming back.
Yeah.
Don't have that pressure on yourself. Just say, I'm going to just go do 3, like, well, I always say 4 weeks is a good place to start because you can always extend usually. But if you say sign up to 3 months, you get there, it's not your vibe, you don't like the town, you know, anything like that. I think having that flexibility, and that's why it's perfect with agency. Some places are super flexible. They'll do 2-week, 3-week, 4-week contracts. There's a void in the roster. So I always just say, go do a little contract, maybe in like a bigger, smaller town, especially coming from like a metro city. Have a look, see if you enjoy it, see if you enjoy the vibe, because some people go, they do it and they're like, it's not for me. That's fine. At least you've gone and done it. You've given it a go. And then I always say, like, I probably threw myself in the deep end a bit too quickly, going so remote so quickly, but also it was perfect time because that's when I fell in love with it. And I was like, I'm never going back now. I've shot myself in the foot.
You had the troopie. You had the means to get going.
But also too, it might be, you know, the first one might not be the right one, but it might also be about landing on that right community as well. Because do you do back to back, or like do you set yourself breaks throughout the year? How do you manage that? And I suppose that, you know, the consistency of work with agency, the ebbs and flows.
Yeah, I usually like to do 6 months of work, 6 months off. That's my really good balance that I've found.
How amazing is that too?
That's like,
I
know,
right? That in itself is a huge selling point.
Really
like, I think that's really important to highlight, that you can work for half a year and have a really incredible life.
Me that job.
Yeah.
We're doing the wrong thing.
And like I did this 6 months, and in the 6 months, I earned more than what I was earning working 2 full-time jobs on the Gold Coast. And then I had a 6 months off to travel. So I think that fine balance is just like, I've found my balance now. It's like, I sort of like to do 4 weeks on and 4 weeks off, 2 months on and 2 months off.
Yeah.
Last year, I knew I was going to do sort of the Perth to Darwin, and I wanted a solid amount of time for that. So I did pretty well back-to-back contracts. I think I did a month and then another 3 months. It was 2 months, 1 month, and for 3 months down in Bunbury. So I sort of had like almost 6 months of solid work, but in between I also had like 2 weeks off, or 4 weeks off. So, but it was more consistently, like it was 6 months. This year I've been a little bit slack. I've sort of worked like 4 months since last financial year, and I'm like,
come on, Indy, what are you doing to us? Do you know though, like when you think about it, there's so much conversation around like the lack of the ability for frontline workers to get that work-life balance. But I think when you don't think about the fact that you could go out and do these locum roles, like you said, you can earn so much more money, but then also get that bit more balance. And, you know, I think we see a lot of people that feel that burnout sometimes in the city hospitals, and doing this actually just, they sort of fall back in love with the profession in a whole new way.
Yeah, I took 4 months off hospital nursing when I quit the Gold Coast, and I was so burnt out. I really didn't like my job. I was was a kind of quarter life crisis, but I was on the way because I was like, I don't know, like I've spent 3 years of my life working towards this degree. I've had 2 years of full-time work and I really didn't like it. And I didn't like going, like I enjoyed the people that I worked with. I was like, this isn't for me. Took some time off and like I never knew I wanted to be a nurse. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just go into something else. Like I'll find another career. I'll go work another job and I'll just get out of nursing. Like maybe it isn't for me because I've seen a lot of people leaving the profession, which is really sad because it is. I genuinely reckon doing agency has completely changed my perspective. Like I love my job and when I get a placement and I get to go back to work, like I'm so excited. And I think
So
that's
beautiful.
what some people don't get anymore because you're burnt out, you're working overtime, like you're hustling so hard, working full time. And obviously people need that because they've got families, they've got other commitments. And I'm so lucky because I'm like, when I have a placement and I have 4 weeks off, I like get all the jitters. I'm like, I'm so excited. I get to go back to work. Like I get to, the first few days I'm like, oh, I feel a bit dud. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. And then it all comes back in and I'm like, sweet. Like it's so nice to sort of like go back to work. And I know like I'm going to look forward to it. And on the shitty days where it's just really busy or it's just like hectic and you're like, oh, and if I went back to a permanent job and it's a shit day, you're like, oh, I have to come back.
I've got to come back and do it again.
This is it.
But I'm like, with agency, I'm like, you know what? I can have a shit day. I have a lot of good days. So, yeah.
Do you do you see yourself taking this troopie overseas and going international? Like once you've done Australia?
Yeah, so I'm sort of at a crossroads.
Like you're at that point now. Like what happens now?
I know. And come August, I was actually talking to Becky the other
I was just going to say, should we cut this out for Becky? Should we be like, what? Is that what we talked about?
No, I messaged Becky because I was like, I'm free. I had to work out my dates. I spoke to her a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I'll let you know. And so I worked out my dates yesterday. So once I finish Far North Queensland and I'm going to hopefully drive the troopie to East Arnhem just to have a couple of weeks exploring. My life in Australia is like officially done. Yeah. So it's taken me, it'll be 3.5 years. And I'd love to go overseas. Like I think that's sort of at a point in my career where, go work in New Zealand and you can work in Canada as well. But it's also like I love what I've done now and I have a really, really good work-life balance now. So I don't know whether I'd get the same thing overseas. Like I'd love to do it for the experience and the exposure. Like I think that's something that you'd never get. But also at the same time, I'm like, would I be better off staying in Australia and maybe going into like I'd love to do my midwifery and things like that just to have like a broader scope, especially coming remote.
Yeah, I was going to say if you're remote, that'd be fantastic skills to have.
Yeah, because at the moment, like I know the bare minimum I can fumble my way through, but I'm like, it'd be really, and then, placement-wise to have like the RN experience as well as a mid experience is really, really beneficial. I think you sort of I thought I opened up a whole other can of worms coming around, and there's the iron roles that you can spike into too.
How incredible though to have so many options and opportunities. I think you've obviously just
the story is amazing.
Done some really, I guess, deep digging over the last couple of years, and that must have been so hard. But look where you've come now and the experiences you've had with so many more ahead of you. Like it's super exciting, and I think it's just. You're such a good role model for what else is available in nursing. I speak to universities sometimes and they're often saying that people don't know what's available to them. They think they have to go work in a local hospital, So I think it's so great that you can share this story so that we can share it with others and inspire people. For your time today, CMR is donating $500 to a charity of your choice. Where are we sending that money to today?
So I sort of thought about it when I was figuring out, like, I didn't really know what to do. And I've decided I'm going to throw it towards Red Dust. I don't know if you guys have heard of
Red Dust. We've done some
work
work
with them last year.
Yes. Yeah, I love that you've chosen them. Tell us why.
So when I was up on the island on my first stint up here, it was sort of like, I had no idea, like I'd worked from remote hospitals, but coming up to an Indigenous community, I've definitely found my passion, I suppose, in Indigenous nursing. I think it is some of the most like special things you can do, like, and the people that work in these communities are absolute legends. Like they're some of the best people that you'll meet because there's a lot of, like, it's just a different world up here. And trying to explain that to people. And yeah, so I met Red Dust. They came to the school for a week and the kids put on like a fashion show. And they'd done like, because I went to the school where they were doing it and they were painting, they did all their hats, they like drew on their hats, and then they had like tie-dye shirts and they put on this full like fashion show. And I remember just sitting there and I had like the sorest cheeks because I was like, this is the most beautiful thing. And, you know, I've done some research about them and I think they're just one of the best. You know, they're supporting the small communities. They're putting money into places that really make a difference and seeing the kids light up. Like the school attendance was incredible because everyone wanted to go to school that week. And I think it's just, I don't know, I think it's a really good company to support. They obviously, you know, they do a really good job in all sort of, like, in heaps of different ways as well. So
no, that's such a good choice. Before we wrap up, can you just elaborate? Then you said, if it's so hard to explain the role of Indigenous nursing. Can you explain it a little bit? Because it is really hard to explain, and for someone to understand what that role looks like, I think it's really important.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the time there is a big language barrier. It's a different type of nursing altogether. A lot of Indigenous people have a lot of sacred parts of them. So, you know, they don't, sometimes are not open as a stranger. Like it takes a few times to actually build a trust with them. Not so much that they're wary, but it's like at the end of the day, I'm coming, like I feel privileged that I get to come onto their land. I get to help them. A lot of the time there's, you know, medication management and like pain management and things like that, and trying to explain that to them in the way, you know, the importance of hygiene, the importance of, you know, for the babies, their feeding routine and sleep patterns and things like that. I think there's a big misconception, like it can be really quite difficult to share with locals. Like one of the locals here, English is like his 8th language. So he speaks to me, he's like, you sound like you're not even speaking English. Like I can't understand you sometimes. So I think it's a whole different scope and the way that you speak to them, and it's a lot less. I think hospitals can be very like sterile, I suppose. It's a very clean environment, and it's, you know, treating other people and then treating Indigenous people is like a completely, like how their bodies and how their souls are connected to land is completely different to how we are, I suppose. So it's been a big culture shock, definitely, to sort of learn like your barriers and how you even approach someone in the community and things like that. I think that's been something, and I would never have learnt that because I didn't even know it existed on the Gold Coast. But like it just didn't happen. I didn't see this type of connection to country or like going out hunting and, you know, all that sort of thing. And like you try and communicate what's really important health-wise, but in a way that's easy to understand for them. You know, you can push it on someone, but again, you can't make them change their mind. They have to make that change for themselves. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, really cool to then like see them come back in a couple of weeks' time, or, you know, their blood pressure's come down, you're like, you're taking your tablets and you know the importance of this. Like this is good. Where
did you learn though all of this? You said that about you've had to learn so much. Like, have you done courses? Have you had to learn in each community you've gone to?
Yeah, so I did my postgrad through Flinders. I did a grad cert in rural and remote health practice. Right. And I had like a week-long intensive in Alice, and then like 2 of the subjects were basically about like cultural appropriation and, you know, like treating an Indigenous person in a way that's respectful for yourself and both them. And, you know, how to cross those barriers of like languages and how to explain things to them. Up here, like, you know, a lot of places they'll teach you like a local language, but here there's a bit difficult because there's so many. Yeah. But they have like certain words and you can speak to them, or, you know, you can say things in a way that's, I don't know, they sort of teach you as well. Like a lot of our local workers here are obviously all Indigenous, and, you know, you spend some time with them and it's nice because they sort of like teach you. Last time I was here, I went out mud crabbing, or they'll take you to the local farm and just say you can eat this. So it's like, I'm going to eat the random bush food. Like, what are you giving me? But it's that trust that you have, and I think it's super special. Like, that connection. Genuinely that connection that you get, and then, you know, the connection that like ceremonies and things. It's you listen and you watch, and, you know, you ask questions, and most of the time they're super open about it. They're happy to answer your questions. They're happy to be, you know, if you're open to them and learning about their culture, they are just as responsive to you. So I think as long as I did my postgrad, and that helped me sort of understand the foundations of it.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's literally just been like a talking to them, like speaking to the elders, speaking to the community members. As people come in and you treat them, you're like, oh, you need to ask little questions here and there, you can see what's going on. And I think you have to be so open-minded to it, because if you come into a space like this is their land, this is their home. It would be the exact same if I went into anybody's home in any other place and you're like, this is how I'm going to do it. This is what's going to happen. They would tell you to
absolutely.
see you later.
Absolutely.
So it's just like the way, I think it's just a different sort of, it's a mindset, I suppose, just to be able to switch that and be like, no, this is what's going to happen. Like, if you want to do this, let's work together. It's a lot more, collaborative. Yeah. So I suppose it's just like you educate yourself and then you expose yourself, I suppose, just getting used to it and being so open-minded to it. Nothing surprises me anymore, put it that way.
I bet. Indy, we could literally talk to you all day, and I'm conscious someone's probably going to bust through that door behind you because the clinic's probably about due to open.
Let's give your Instagram a plug. What's your Instagram
and your TikTok?
Yeah, so they're both at It's Indy P. So that's, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. If anyone wants to ask me questions, I'm happy to oblige. I'm super open about it and how I got here, and my journey sort of completely changed my life like massively in so many ways. So I always loved that. I think that's why I've been a big advocate of trying agency nursing, and I think I've probably sent hundreds of people your way. That I know I send them Becky's email. I'm like, I'm sorry, Becky, like I just sent another one. Oh no, she would be ever so grateful. And I think it's lovely to just see that, just that lovely bond that you've created around the country, and pulling in that cornerstone community. It's really lovely to see you helping us to grow that community and make an impact all over the country. So thank you so very much for your time today. We have loved talking to you. We look forward to hearing about the next step of the adventure for you. We'll be following. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We might have to have you on season 2.
Yeah.
Part 2.
Exactly.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to share, rate and review. This allows us to reach more people and share more incredible stories. Click the follow or subscribe button to ensure you never miss an episode.